All right, so this video is entitled Muh Bootstraps, and it's basically a critique of one of my least favorite ideological arguments of mainstream conservatism, and that is Muh Bootstraps. Muh Bootstraps is essentially the argument that any misfortune a person suffers, any mistakes they make, any failures are entirely their own fault for being lazy, for not having enough initiative, for just personal decisions on their own part, bad decisions. And it creates the illusion that a person succeeds or fails completely independent of external social factors. It has nothing to do with their genetics, it has nothing to do with their environment, it has nothing to do with anything except their own choices. And I fundamentally disagree with that. And this is actually somewhere where the far right and the left actually agree. We disagree on our exact conclusions, but we agree on the fundamental premise that you are more than a product of your choices. Uh, the alt-right would tend to say that genetics is the main determinant factor, whereas leftists would tend to say environment. I do think it is mostly genetics. I do think environment also plays a part. I would say it's probably about, I don't know, 70% genetics, 30% environment. You could disagree on the exact ratio, but overall, I do think genetics is a bigger influence. But the point being that Muh Bootstraps ignores both genetics and environment. And the ironic thing is, as much as the Muh Bootstraps argument chides people for being lazy, it is, in and of itself, a very lazy argument. Because it boils everything down to the idea that we're all on an equal playing field. Every man is born equal. Every man is equal at all points in time in terms of their advantages and disadvantages. And all failures come from a lack of work ethic or just bad decisions. We all know anyone, I think honestly, anyone with an IQ above 120 knows that that's not the truth, that genetics and environment are also a factor. All kinds of predetermined things. Now, these things can change to some extent, they can be malleable, but nonetheless, the idea that we're all born on an equal playing field is untrue. And that is something the National Socialists understood. That's why they favored eugenics. Although, to be honest, a lot of people of that time, not just the National Socialists, favored eugenics. And it's also true for the communists. They acknowledge that too, which is why they wanted to radically reorganize society to create more equality. Now, I don't think the communists had the correct solution, but they at least acknowledged the issue that not everyone is equal, as did the National Socialists. Liberals today acknowledge that their solutions are somewhat similar to the communists, but more predicated on race and gender and sexuality than on class. The point being, the mainstream conservative is literally the only person who fails to acknowledge this reality and continuously backs up on the argument of Muh Bootstraps. And I think clinging to that argument is a failure, it's a cop-out, and quite frankly, it is lazy. So my advice to the people who believe in Muh Bootstraps is to literally pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and make a better fucking argument.